Welcome to the final video in this little mini series on everything you need to know about fat loss. And so far we have covered what sort of rate of loss that you can expect, that you want, that maybe you can stick to, the timeframes that you should be working towards. I've spoken through how to calculate your calories and macros to get you off to the best possible start. We've spoken through training programming, and I've given you some free training plans there to get your teeth into. And it brings us on to the last part for this particular series, and that is cardio and steps. Now, I know a lot of people have this very much sort of, I was going to say love-hate. For a lot of people, it's hate-hate with cardio. Cardio is actually really, really important, and more than just as a fat loss tool. Like, cardio is going to be great for just general fitness levels, for making sure heart, lungs, etc. are functioning well. It is also a very, very useful tool when it comes to fat loss, because it can, if used the right way, be something that you can implement, and it doesn't then necessarily mean that you need to pull food down quite as hard, quite as much, quite as quickly. If we know that we've got cardio to use, fantastic. Similar with steps, underrated sometimes because they are particularly low intensity. Like, it doesn't, a lot of people think when it comes to energy expenditure and stuff that counts towards their energy expenditure, they need to be struggling for breath, they need to be sweating their ass off. Steps are underrated from that point of view. Like, low intensity, keep your body moving, really, really good from a physical benefit. But I also find from a steps point of view that they're just great from a mental health standpoint, especially if you can get out into some nature. The amount of times that, if I'm busy, there's a lot going on, if I just need some creative space, I just try and get myself out for a walk. And ideally, I get myself out for a walk where there's a little bit of nature near me, whether that's just a bit of green space, round a lake, in a wood, like just something that allows me and my brain the opportunity to just have a bit of downtime. So don't underestimate the mental health benefits that come with this. But I know for the purpose of this series, obviously we're talking about fat loss primarily, and so we're talking about energy expended. So these both become really useful tools, but they need to be implemented at the right times for the right people in the right circumstances. So in terms of how and when to do these, some of this links back to what we did at the start when it comes to calculating calories and macros. Like, if you're somebody at the moment who has a particularly sedentary role, is there scope to improve that? Do you have the time available to get more steps in? Because while steps are amazing, to get enough energy expenditure for them to have a significant impact, you're probably going to need to do quite a few of them. Now, if you're only doing 2,000 to 3,000 steps in a day, I would imagine it's not going to be that much more difficult for you to get 5,000 or 6,000, because to get an additional 2,000 or 3,000 steps is probably going for a 20-minute, 25-minute walk. That could mean that you do that first thing in the morning. It could mean that you get out at lunchtime. It might mean that you take a call while you're walking. Like, if it's a call that doesn't require you to be sat staring at a screen or within a meeting room, can you take that call out on the move? Can you get a walk pad and even do a little bit of work while you're moving? All of these things become options. And to get an additional 2,000 or 3,000 steps a day and to walk for 20, 25 minutes, most people should be able to find that time. So that would be one of the things I'd be looking at initially. There is then obviously a big difference between somebody who might currently be doing 2,000 or 3,000 steps and expecting them to bump that up to 5 or 6 and needing to go for a 20, 25-minute walk. If you're already doing 15 to 20,000 steps, for you to try and get an additional 3, 4, 5,000 steps in, maybe that does become a bit more difficult because you're already busy, you're already active. There isn't too much more opportunity to do that. For you, it might actually be that more structured cardio becomes a better approach, because you can expend more energy in a shorter space of time, particularly if you opt for something that's a little bit more like HIIT style cardio, high intensity interval training. And your body's going to respond to that a bit better as well, because if your body's already quite conditioned to doing 15 to 20,000 steps a day, your body's very efficient when it does those. So actually adding 3, 4, 5,000 may not have as big an impact as somebody who's only doing 2,000 or 3,000 and suddenly they double their step count. So these things play a role too. But some general rules of thumb to think about. If you've got the ability, the time, and the availability to increase your steps, and you're already doing quite low steps, that's probably the option I would look to first. If you're somebody who's struggling a little bit more for time, but you want to get the most out of what you're doing, more structured cardio is probably going to be the way forward. If you can, and again, a lot of this is going to come down to a time availability, lower intensity steady state cardio is a fantastic approach because it's not overly taxing. It's not going to massively impact on your recovery capacity. But because it's lower intensity, you do tend to need to do it for a longer period of time. So if we're talking about like the kind of things that might be considered low intensity cardio, it would be stuff like going for a fairly gentle jog, potentially walking on an incline treadmill, doing something on a cross trainer or a bike. It's trying to keep your heart rate somewhere in the region of like 130, 140 beats per minute at a fairly consistent amount of time. But you probably are going to need to do that in spates of like half an hour to an hour each time you do that for it to have enough impact when it comes to energy expended. If you're really time poor, you're already doing your 15, 20,000 steps, you're already in the gym 4 or 5 times a week, the ability to add another hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of cardio or more steps, whatever it might be, just becomes much lower. But you could say tack on 10 minutes to the end of your workout in the form of high intensity cardio. That could be the perfect thing for you. And that might look like 30 seconds of flat out sprint, 60 to 90 seconds of recovery, 30 seconds flat out sprint, 60 to 90 seconds recovery. You do that 5 or 6 rounds, it's 10 minutes worth of time, in, out, burns a lot of energy, gets a sweat up, gets you pumped, and you can get out again. Like that could be the perfect thing for you. The only thing to then be a little bit more considerate of is it's going to take a bit more out of you. Potentially it's going to take a bit more recovery as a result. But the considerations I'd have when it comes to cardio and steps, almost in order of preference, like if you can get more steps in, I'd opt for those first because they're low intensity, they're great for mental health as well as physical. If you've got a bit more time available, lower intensity cardio, that steady state approach, again, could be fantastic. If you're really particularly time poor, HIIT could be the one. You've also got, again, the option, as always, to combine some of these. You might have the ability to do 1 HIIT session a week and 1 LISS session a week. Fantastic. All of these things can be combined. Like, it doesn't mean that if you pick one, it's the only thing you can do. You can use them at different times. You can make sure you get the most out of them. If you're struggling with any of that, if you're struggling to sort of, comprehend what type of cardio to do, what time you've got available, what would be best in your situation, let me know. Drop a little comment below. Send me a message, ben@benhowardfitness.com. Message me on any of my socials @benhowardfitness, all linked in the description. We can chat it all through and we can make sure that we take care of everything we need to. And that brings us to the end of this little mini series. I hope you found this really, really useful. Like it's a thing that I think a lot of people can get wrong, but the initial setup is really, really important. And once you've got that in place, that's going to allow you to stick to it. That's going to improve the consistency. The results are going to come from consistent application over time. So spending a little bit of time getting all of these things sorted and in the right place is really important. It's time well spent. And if you're completely bewildered, you're completely confused, but you have a real desire to change, get in touch and send me a message, because this is stuff that I take care of for all of my clients on a daily basis. They know exactly what they need to do. The plans are in place and they can follow them. They can get the results and they can learn as they go. Any questions, anything you want to ask about coaching, please, fire those over as well. And I'm always happy to have a completely obligation-free conversation. Get on a call, no expectation of commitment, no, strong arming you into anything that you don't want or need or is necessary. But if you just want to have a very open and honest conversation, get in touch and let me know. Hope you found it useful. Share it far and wide, and anything you need, give me a shout.